Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Hope everybody's well. Hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. And I hope you're all having a very nice Monday too. Let's have a look in the chat and see who we've got. I've seen a few of you have already, some of you are painting, some of you are just chilling out. Let's see, we've got Peter Nicholas, nice and early. Hello, sir. How are you? Lord Maiden was in as well, nice and early. Tony Howell, evening to you, sir. Let me very quickly just pop on the timestamp so I can see what time everybody was in. We also had, where are we at? Steve Evans was in as well, nice and early. David Moffat saying good afternoon, BlackJack Arenos. Good afternoon to you, David. Dave Dog is in as well, saying I'm coding away to Moffat there. I bet you're just painting minis. I'm sure he is, mate. Marcus says I'm going to be a little bit late. Well, welcome in whenever you get here, Marcus. Nice to see you dropping by. David's doing some mantic zombies and ghouls tonight. We've got Anna in from Red Rose Wargaming. Hello, Anna. How are you? Nice to see your stuff featured on Doug's 2+ Tough channel the other day. That was very nice to see. Christian saying, evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Thank you for coming in. And again, herding the cats. We've got the other Steve Evans in. We have to call you Steve 1 and Steve 2. I won't tell you which one of you is 1 and 2. We've got Mark Coxey as well. Mark Wright, good evening. Scott Longworth, good evening to you as well, Scott. I saw the ships that you've been 3D print, mate, look very, very nice. We got Matthew Wilkinson saying hello. Scott's busy working on some 3D stuff tonight. Lee said he's just listening in tonight as he's painting terrain. Oh, is the terrain for 40k, mate? Are you getting more of your 40k games in? We got Derek Hodge saying he's just finishing off some Greek heroes for Mortal Gods Mythic. Nice one, fella. Stuart Hayes, good evening. Steve saying he's got some 6mm American Civil War Confederate Artillery and Union Infantry tonight. There's a nice change of pace for you, mate. Do you play a lot of American Civil War stuff, do you? I mean, I know you've kind of been getting into the smaller scale stuff, or you've certainly been talking about it more recently. I wasn't sure whether you were into that stuff or not. Let's have a look. Iron's in as well. Hello, Iron. How are you doing? Kieran's in as well from Odd Sided Dice podcast. She's just finished gluing his fingers together while getting another kit bash done for his channel. So downtime listening to the Northern Sage. Very nice. Barry Kleiber, hello, mate. How are you? Good afternoon, I think it is. Bruce is in as well. Good evening to you, Bruce. Matthew's painting 3 bugbears for use in Oathmark. I don't know much about Oathmark, mate, I'll be honest. Scott's got more ships getting ready for painting. Steve's got some Incubi on the go. David said he's feeling stoked for Oathmark. Maybe I need to find out a bit more about it then. Yogam, good evening, sir. How are you? Where are we up to there? Yes, it did jump before I tell you. We've got Busey in as well. Hello, Busey. How's you, mate? Barry says, fancy looking new microphone with shock mount, snazzy. You can kind of see it there, can't you? Yes, I thought it was time to invest in some decent gear. I've been kind of using some very cheap, very old microphone gear for quite some time. And I guess, I thought it was time to invest in some better stuff. So hopefully the sound is loud enough. It's not too loud for you. I have more control of it now. I've got a nice little mixing kind of unit here. I've got a decent microphone. We shouldn't have any more issues anymore now. But yeah, I thought it was time to bite the bullet and actually spend some money. Rob's in as well. Good evening, Rob. How are you doing, mate? Tony says, evening, my lovely beasties. Stu's in as well. Good evening. Says, taking the opportunity to build terrain. So what terrain are you building, mate? Let me know. Palmsy's in. Says, hope everyone is beautiful. Chuck and Deborah in as well. Says, 1 p.m. in Oregon. Good afternoon and good evening. Good afternoon to you, sir. Arnold says he's on holiday building minis in the camper. Well, there you go, mate. Lord Maiden says hello to VJ. VJ's name hasn't even shown up on mine yet. Well, there you go. That just. It jumped further than I thought. There was a big chunk of folks that never showed up initially. We've got John Franson, James Zorm. We've got Simon Davin. We've got Horrid Dave. We've got Jacob. He says, say yes to what? I'll come on to that in a second, mate. We've got John Estel. He says he's just got in from work, so he's chilling tonight. Dirk's in as well. Bjorn in says, hey to you too, Bjorn. VJ is in. Good morning, VJ. Bruce is saying he's drawing. He's got to do a Necromunda scene with Enforcers. Nice. Arnold in the house. Jeffrey Higgins in as well. Higdon, I should say. Mark Berracloth says he's just started his first game of Super Fantasy Brawl. Yeah, I think mine might be at the back of the pile, mate. I ordered the Feldherr case as well, and I would assume that they're getting rid of kind of everything else with before they get to the ones with any complicated stuff to add into the box. Right, now I'm catching up. Ortega says it looks to be a good one tonight. Can't stay, but look forward to the rewatch. Thank you, Ortega, for dropping in. Peter says he's watching after watching Debsworth's recent upload and followed suit and got his knobs out. About time those orcs got some paint. I can never say that without laughing like a 10-year-old schoolboy. Lee says he's a rocky terrain made from polystyrene and filler, nice and scale system agnostic. That can't be bad, mate, can it, when you can use it more than one thing? Good evening, Frantic. Hello, mate. How are you? Luke's in as well there, saying how we doing, everyone? Just say yes. And Peter Koeman saying yeah for all American Civil War there. So for those that, I'm sure you've read the title for tonight's topic. What's tonight about? Tonight is about say yes more often. And this is not about spending more money. I'm not trying to sell you any games or anything like that. I'm going to talk about the amount of times that I've just said, no, I don't want to play that. That's not for me. I won't like that. And I want to talk about saying yes more often and try yes to new experiences, yes to trying new things, gaming wise. Keep me on topic. We're not going off topic on that one. So saying yes more often, and I'll tell you the background about why I want to talk about this. We've got James Brayton. Good evening to you. David Mackay says no crackles or pops. Yay! We got there in the end. To be honest, mate, I've learned a lot by obviously doing a bit of research to buy a new microphone and all the audio equipment and stuff that I needed. One of the things I've even learned is the power to my microphone shouldn't be on the same kind of power that my PC is powered on, because that gives a bit of an electronic sort of buzz in the background. So I've had to redo a lot of my electrical connections so that the microphone is powered from a different socket to the one that powers my PC, and even that's improved it as well. So yeah, I've learned a lot more through this one. Joachim saying the sound is perfect. Awesome. James is saying Mike may be a tiny bit hot, sir. We can turn it down a touch. It's probably just me getting more excited. When I've been testing it, I turn it down a little bit. I've just turned it down a touch. Tell me if that's any better. When I've been testing it, obviously I probably don't talk as loud. It's weird sitting on your own just talking to a camera. For all I'm still doing that now. You lot are here, so it's a bit different. VG said I was going to paint this morning, but considering how tired he is, thought I'd better trying to put paint on a model this morning with my bleary eyes. Yeah, mate, just take it easy. You don't want to be doing it at like crazy time, 6 o'clock in the morning. Peter saying great sound tonight. Thank you very much. Bobby saying good evening. Been building tanks for tabletop tactics, lads, today. Oh, I assume you got a bit of painting on the go, mate, have you? Blizzards is in. Never late, mate. Precisely when you mean to be here. Let's Talk Board Games is in as well. Or it would be if I hadn't just jumped off the top of my screen again. Wow, I was jumping tonight. We've got plenty of people in, that's why. Says, I haven't made it to a live stream in a few weeks. Happy to be back in the BlackJack house. Nice to see you in, mate. Welcome back. Lord Maiden says, yes, thumb up this man. Horrid Dave says, painting Vanguard Dwarves and Brotherhood minis from Wargames Foundry. Very nice, mate. Stu's got a bit of 40k Vertigus terrain set. There's a surprisingly large amount in the box. Red Rose Wargaming, thank you very much. What was that? Say yes to supporting creators. Thank you, Red Rose Wargaming. Yes, support creators. I mean, there's a bit of a kind of there's two schools of thought. Some people say that people do this as a hobby. It's a bit of fun. They shouldn't expect money. However, it's expensive. I mean, things like this microphone is not cheap. Yes, this is my job now. I have to invest in the equipment I need. But I think people forget that actually creators, especially creators who are probably like in the first couple of years of starting out in the journey and stuff, they don't get free stuff. Like, they buy everything. Like, it takes a little while to build up a decent sized following, and it takes a lot of time to build up like enough kind of even just like subscribers or views or whatever to companies where they think it's worth their while to kind of send you anything. Until that point, it costs you a fortune. You're always buying new stuff to kind of show off. You're putting extra time into paying things up to try and sort of create a community and share a hobby with other people. So yes, no matter whether that creator has 200,000 subscribers or 2 subscribers, all creators need support. So yes, say yes to supporting creators. Where are we up to? Stu said he's building 40k Vertigus terrain set. Surprisingly large amount in the box. I've not seen that yet, mate, but look, so I'm not really sure which one it is. Arnold says his parents bought like 20 years ago. That was the what do you call it? Arnold as well just donated there. What was that one? Something about don't start something. That's not put on my screen. Don't start so early. Tony says he managed to sort the Wi-Fi just in time. We've got the tasty brain drain. Hello. I usually at work, listening more than chatting. Probably say something every now and then. Lee says, saying yes to different games really opened my eyes. It took starting a podcast for me to do it more, but now I'm always up for trying more in different games. Do you know what it is, mate? It's funny because it's probably one of the things with me doing this YouTube channel and stuff like that I feel like I need to kind of at least keep abreast of stuff. Understand what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the background, what's going on in new games, what's coming out. I get a lot of people in the live streams now, like asking about different games, and it's nice to be able to have an opinion based upon some kind of knowledge, not just I saw a picture of it online and I roughly know how much it is kind of thing. It's nice to have something, and that was what maybe started me down that path. But I'll come on to the details a bit later about why it's really kind of it's been quite interesting to say yes. Scott says, your Armada videos rekindle my interest in naval war games. Good job. Yeah, I kind of want to talk about Armada, not necessarily tonight, but at some point I'll probably do a full review of it, and I'll have more gameplay coming up as well. Because the only regret I have from that Armada video is I didn't get a chance to show off the kind of the magic side of things or the more interesting scenarios. The idea was I was playing against my wife. She'd not played it before. I was trying to kind of control cameras and all sorts of stuff, playing a brand new game. And I wanted to really showcase the core rules of the game, the core mechanics. And I think the video did that pretty well. But what it maybe didn't do was show some of the fantasy flavour over something like Black Seas. And by keeping the intro scenario relatively kind of straightforward, it maybe didn't show off some of the depth of the gameplay as well. Some of that was intentional. Mantic asked me not to share certain things because they obviously want to share some things themselves. So that was part of the reason why I didn't show some of it off. But I think future game players will show off a bit more of the magic elements, the maybe the weather rules, the wind rules, where the kind of the more advanced ones, the different captains that you can have on your ship, the magic upgrades and stuff. So yeah, there's more to it than what I showed, but if that kind of basic gameplay is something you're interested in, there's more to come from that one. Joachim says, totally understand. I've been looking for a camper for some years now. Stu saying, these are the kind of studio streaming setup tips and experiences that a few of us are interested in hearing about. I tell you what I might do is I might kind of put together some kind of like little bits of information and stuff. I'm definitely going to do a bit of a studio tour. As you could see from the Armada video, obviously the setup that I've got now with multiple cameras and stuff, and my table and all of my lighting and stuff, it all works really well now, and I'm happy that it's all come together. As I mentioned before about getting kind of tripods off the floor to have more space because I've got a relatively small area, and little things like microphones and kind of learning about that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I'll try and share that at some point. Luke's in as a board game. I think this is a subject I see come into play far more regularly than miniature gaming. I think the difference, in fact, I'm not going to talk about it now. I'll talk about it when I come to the subject, but remind me about board gaming later, Luke, mate. Where else we have? VGS in the Armada Better Up was great. Has definitely sold me on checking it out. Officially added to the birthday Christmas list. Anna's just donated again there as well. Shouldn't be saying why I more often. I never say why I. Maybe I'm a. I think why I is very Geordie. It's very Geordie. I think my accent, whilst obviously being very northern, very northeast, it's a mix of the different parts of the northeast that I've lived in. So I think it's kind of softened a little bit. It's not really strong Geordie. It's certainly not really strong Mackem, which is kind of where I'm from Sunderland. I lived in Durham for a while. I lived in South Shields for a while. So I've always lived in the northeast, but I think my accent it's almost become generic northeast now. And there's certain words I'll say that are probably northern, sort of like northeast or Geordie or something. But yeah, most of the kind of the stereotypical YI mans and stuff, I don't think I've ever said why I'm man in my life other than to mock my own accent. John saying it was a great intro video for Armada. More layers in the future. I'm sure that's the foundation. Yeah, there were a few people who seem to be like, well, it's not. It's just like Black Seas. There's no difference. What on earth kind of thing. it was twofold. One was Mantic asked me not to share certain stuff. The other one was that I wanted to keep it simple. My wife really kindly stepped in. I tried to film it myself, and I had to keep wandering around the table and like moving microphone cables and trying to kind of film both sides. And I got into a right mess where basically I was putting the wounds on the wrong ships and stuff. And it was like I can't do this on my own for a game I don't know like 100% bang on. So yeah, my wife stepped in, and so I wanted to keep it as straightforward as possible, just to enable her to enjoy it, to play it really, and to be able to enjoy it as well. So yeah, there'll be more to come. Scott says, do you plan on looking at any World War II naval games in the future, like Victory at Sea? Victory at Sea, I don't really know much about, mate, if I'm honest. I've got Cruel Seas, which is the original Warlord World War II game, but I must admit, playing Armada has definitely opened my eyes to something like Black Seas. I don't want to go into too much detail about why I like the games, because I'll probably do that in a review, in a future video. But there are certain things that playing a naval game I've never played, other than if you could count something like Black Seas, Blood Red Skies, or X-Wing. You could class as kind of a naval game. It's like aerial combat. If you can class them ones, there's something about the continuous movement and the narrowing down of options that you have that I find really interesting. Krabby's in as well. Hello, mate. How are you doing? Pomsy says you don't see a mint either. My wife says mint quite a lot. I probably say canny. Canny's a proper northeast word. I probably say canny quite a lot. Howard Dave says, as a monk, you're proper Geordie. Yeah, but the thing is, I've lived in Newcastle the least. I've only lived in Newcastle for 3 years, so I'm definitely not Geordie. But yeah, there'll be a bit more stuff in it. Krabby saying, big up the South Shields, massive. Scott says, class or henny. Jimmy C, good morning. He says, I lived in Bear Park in Durham nearly 20 years ago. I wasn't far from Bear Park when I lived in Durham, mate. I lived in Newton Hall, which wasn't far from Bear Park. Lee says, never say why, not even when you were in Biter Grove. My only line in Biter Grove was, I think I said no. That was pretty much it, mate. That was my line. Christian sharing the link there for the Patreon. Thank you very much. Anybody at the $5 and above Patreon level, either already a member now or anybody that wants to join in the future, there's a new episode of the Patreon only podcast that's live now with myself and Luke Pryor, and we talk about those games that where you put them in your basket when you're shopping online and your fingers clicking and hovering over the buy button, but you just never do it for whatever reason. We talk about that. Peter says it was a great bat rep. Look good for not trashing your wife in game one. Mine still doesn't want to play. I tell you what, my wife actually really enjoyed the game. She's not a fan of miniatures games at all. She loves playing board games, enjoys card games as well, but is not a fan of miniatures games. And I think what we discovered through playing it was that because there wasn't multiple dice rolls, it was a case of just roll your dice, have you hit me or not, and the fact that there was restricted movement, as in, well, I've got to go forward, I've got to go my maximum distance, and the only real option was kind of sort of how far do I turn and stuff to try and steer around things. Even the activation order is fixed for the game. It's dictated to by the wind. So I think the fact that it put limitations around it, which meant you focused on the gameplay and the strategy side of it. And she said she really enjoyed it. She wants to play it again. And yeah, she said she would to play another game as well for a battle report, which is fantastic. It gives me an extra pair of hands, and if she enjoys playing it, so much the better. VJ says Andy's accent is still easily understandable. Unfortunately, there are some content creators I love to watch, but not being able to understand them. I don't know if it's a Northeast thing, but I've had quite a lot of people from different countries and stuff saying that the Northeast accent randomly is easier to understand than maybe like a Southern accent, like a quite a well pronounced kind of English accent, if you like. I obviously can't tell a difference. I just hear what I hear, but it's interesting that others see that. Scott saying Victory at Sea, smaller scale ships instead of the torpedo boats. Ian saying it's pretty fun, but wait for the rule book to be released. I didn't realise it, and it was no rule book, mate. Steve saying you all talk funny up there. You talk funny down there, mate. Matt James says he's down in Bristol. Everything north of Sheffield sounds the same to me. Well, everything south of Middlesbrough is London, mate. That's what I say. Pomsy saying a lot of people don't know Andy's from Brighton and it's all an act. John says Newton Hall. Here you went at Her Majesty's pleasure, were you? No, I wasn't, mate. As it happened, no, I was right on the cusp of Newton Hall and Pity Me. I think was just right on the edge of that one. Not too far from the Arndale Shopping Centre. That's where I was. Not the one in Manchester. The one in Durham. Andrew saying, for those who haven't tried, the US accents quiz is incredibly accurate. Nailed by my 2 primary locations I've lived. Well, there you go. Yeah, VJ saying she wants to play again. Can't get back that. That was kind of what I thought, mate, as well. It's great. Horror Dave says, have you ever tried Blood Bowl? Yes, I have, mate. Never liked it. Never want to play it again. And I'll come on to that when we start talking about the subject, which I'm going to get on in a few seconds, actually. David said his wife was baffled by Luke's APS at first. Yeah, Luke's Yorkshire accent. He's sort of kind of like a Leeds Wakefield lad. Some of that can be a little bit can be a bit tough if you're not used to it. What's Lord Maid on about there? What? This is a bloody outrage. Nice one. Yes. So I tell you what we'll do. Let's get on to. Yes, we'll get on to that one. I was just reading that one. Matthew's saying there, Jerry from On Tabletop could read bedtime stories. Howard says, why didn't you like Blood Bowl? I didn't like it, mate, because it's a game that sounds like it should be fun, has all the elements of a game that should be fun, but isn't fun to play at all. And every time I've played it with multiple different people, it's just been it's been an exercise in, let's play this game. I'll kind of show you how good I am at it, and then after I've pummeled you into the ground, I'll tell you how good I am at the game, kind of thing. I've had nothing but bad experiences playing the game, really, and it's just not fun. It's a game that is, if you're good at it, it's not easy to kind of pull back and try and allow your opponent, like, it's like chess. It's like you don't throw the game, kind of thing. And I just don't find it fun. It's a game that you need to play a lot of times to understand the best way to play the game, because it's all about the order you activate stuff in, and you'll never get that until you've played multiple games. And I just don't find it a game that's fun from that perspective. They're saying, yeah, the random dice. It's not even the random dice, mate, to be fair. That's kind of the least of it. It's more about your opponent goes down, scores, and then basically hides the ball, and then what you spend the rest of the game trying to figure out how to get it back, kind of thing. Matt saying Dread Ball is the best sports game. Well, and VJ saying Blitz Ball for the win. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll flick over to this screen now, and I'm gonna start the main kind of chat tonight. So the topic, I'm reading the screen to make sure I get the topic right. Tonight's topic is say yes more often. And what I'm really meaning by that is, how many times has somebody said to you, "Oh, what do you think of this new game?" I'll pick something out of the net. Let's say Armada, because we've just been talking about it. What do you think of this new game Armada? And somebody goes, I don't like naval combat games, or I don't like fantasy games, or I've already got enough. I don't need to play anything else. And that's before you or anybody that we're talking about here has really got enough information about it yet. There's some kind of preconceived idea that you think at the back of your mind, I'm not going to enjoy that. And so you just say, no, I don't want to try it. No, I don't want to buy it. I don't want to buy the starter set. I don't want to go halves on the starter set. I don't even want a demo of it in days when you could get demos before the world went into lockdown. All them kind of things where you basically just, you think it's not a game you're going to enjoy. And I've done this a lot in the past. I've put myself off things like 40k. I've decided I didn't want to play a sort of Marvel Crisis Protocol is another example of a game where I keep looking at it and I think I should like it. I like Marvel. I like comic book characters, everything else. And I just go, nah, it's a bit expensive. It's not really for me. But what you're doing by saying no is you're potentially starving yourself of a gaming experience that it might be the very game that you've been looking for. Even when I've seen gameplay videos online of games that I think are not for me, and I've watched them and I've thought, yeah, that's just kind of told me it's not for me. I've then gone and played them and had a completely different experience. And some of those games, I probably go back. Warcry might be one of the first ones that I would put on this list. Because when Warcry was first announced, I thought, I'm not a big fan of AOS. I've been burned out on AOS. It's not really for me. I know the model that basically of the release model that I got from Kill Team, where I just kind of got burned out on the Kill Team, kind of like the fast-paced early release stuff, the complicated rules, not too complicated, but multiple dice rolls. The way it was 40k sort of esque, if you like. I didn't want that from an AOS skirmish game. AOS skirmish already existed. I wasn't interested in Warcry. And then somehow the rules were leaked before the release, which to be fair is probably a good thing that they were, because I then read those rules and completely changed my mind of what I thought about that game. Games Workshop don't release their rules for free, so I would never have really got to read the rules unless I'd bought a set of the rules and read through them. And I completely changed my mind. I did a live stream and I made a video about how I did a complete U-turn on Warcry. And Warcry now is one of my favourite games. If not my favourite, it's up there in the top 5 anyway. And I love the simplicity of Warcry. I love the release model of Warcry. I love the war bands. I don't like them all, but that's just purely taste. But if I hadn't sort of said yes to reading those rules, and from reading those rules, I then went to a local store and had a demo game of it on the pre-order weekend, I instantly was hooked. I knew it was the kind of game that I'd been looking for. And if I just ignored them and kind of went with my gut feeling that it wasn't a game I wanted, I'd have missed out on that. And it's happened to me multiple times, really. And that's really what I want to talk about tonight, is because if you are the kind of person that just says no and has those preconceived ideas about a certain game, you are missing out on some fantastic games. Other games I've done the same thing with is God Tier. I did a review recently about God Tier that said, could this be my game of 2020? Could this be the best game that I've played this year, like kind of new releases? It was a game where, when it was first announced, it was just another hex-based combat game. It wasn't something that I thought I was interested in. The models looked okay, but there was nothing that potentially really grabbed me initially. Once it was released, it seemed to like come out to Kickstarter backers. There was very little talked about it. I never saw anything online about it. And the fact there was 2 starter sets, I wasn't really sure why there was 2 starter sets. I was confused by it, and the fact that there was a lack of noise, a lack of content about it, I assumed it wasn't a very, very good game. And if it wasn't for the fact that I got sent a review copy of it, if it wasn't for that fact, I wouldn't have played it, and I wouldn't have regretted not playing it. After getting that review copy and playing it and realising just how much I loved the game, I then went and bought somebody's all-in pledge, and I have everything for that game now, everything that's available. And that's how much I liked it. If it wasn't for doing that demo or getting that review copy, I'd never have picked that game up, and I'd have missed out on a game that I'm really enjoying. Another game that's on that list as well is Blitzball. VJ just mentioned it in the comments there recently. We've just been talking there in the live stream that I'm not a fan of Blood Bowl. I find the game quite frustrating. I find it's a game that really benefits you being good at it. So if you're a new player to the game, and you're playing against somebody who's quite experienced, it's quite hard for that person who is experienced to tone down their kind of gameplay. They see, or it's a bit like chess, that they see the move that they need to make. They know the right order to activate their models in to make sure that they don't then basically kind of sort of end their turn and pass it over. And because of my sort of not liking Blood Bowl, I also thought I wouldn't like Blitzball. I assumed it uses the same models, it's essentially the same rules. Why would I like the same game on a smaller field, if you like, or a smaller board? And VJ has been a massive kind of proponent of Blitzball, how much he loves it, how much it's not like Blood Bowl. So VJ very kindly offered to play a game on Tabletop Simulator. He's over in Australia, I'm over in the UK. He got up at stupid o'clock in the morning to play a game against me online, and I absolutely love it. I knew within playing probably 2 turns, it was exactly the kind of game that I wished Blood Bowl had been. It wasn't that kind of... It still has the element of doing things in the right order, but it doesn't punish you for doing things wrong. You're not instantly punished for doing something wrong. It's not a negative play experience. It's less about scoring touchdowns, and it's more about doing things to score victory points from the cards, if you like, from the cards that come out. And again, if it hadn't been for VG offering to give me a game of that on Tabletop Simulator, I'd never have played it. And from that point, I was like, right, I need to try and get my hands on a copy of this. Luckily, Barry, who's in the chat tonight, lives over in the US, over in Illinois, and he's managed to get a copy from the US, and he's sending a copy over to me. So I should get that at some point in the future, in the near future, and I can't wait to play that. It's a game that I'm glad that I got the opportunity to play, and will get on the tabletop and be able to play those games and paint up some of those fantastic Blood Bowl minis that I wouldn't have bothered touching, basically, because I had no use for them. Another game, and the other one I want to talk about, is Kings of War by Mantic. For years I've looked at this game and loved the idea of those big battles and the big armies, and I talked myself out of it many times. I don't need a big 6x4 game. I don't need a big army game. I'll never paint all those models. It's not really the game for me. I didn't really like the idea of Warhammer Fantasy. My bias from seeing Warhammer Fantasy played at my local club when I was younger never looked particularly interesting. The guys playing it never looked like they were having much fun. They were constantly just kind of sort of setting things up and reading books. That put me off Kings of War. And after a period of time, eventually Kings of War 3rd edition was coming out, and I thought, you know what it is? It's kind of now or never. I'll give it a go. There's a local group kind of set up. They're playing more Mantic games now. I've got the opportunity to give this game a demo and try it out. And again, after about 2 turns, it was like, why couldn't I have gotten into this earlier? Why couldn't I have had a demo years ago and I could have been painting up stuff in the background like forever kind of thing? The game was nothing like I expected. Even watching battle reports online, because I was coming at it with a preconceived opinion of what I thought the game was like, I was almost looking at the negative stuff in it as opposed to looking at the positive stuff. Like, one huge thing that I've always said about Kings of War now since I've played it is that it's essentially, it plays more like a skirmish game than you'd imagine. Yes, you've got big ranks of kind of models, but you're moving around a big base. That big base might have 20 models on it. It might have 60 models on it. But you're essentially moving one big model. And it's about positioning of maybe 8 to 10 models, really, if you think about them as an individual model, those blocks. And I found it so much more interesting. And I actually found the rules probably more straightforward and easier to access than something like Kings of War Vanguard, which I'd found really fun. So what I found over time is that I need to say yes more often, whether that's a board game. Another good example is my wife bought me Carcassonne for Christmas one year. I'd never ever fancied playing Carcassonne. The artwork design on the front of the box did not interest me. It looked like a really heavy Euro game. The name didn't inspire me. It didn't fit like with any kind of theme that I like. She'd bought it. I couldn't go, I didn't really fancy that, but thanks anyway. So we tried it, and I absolutely loved the game, and we played quite a lot, and we continue to play it. It's one of those kind of old or modern day classics, if you like, for all the games being around for 20 years or something. It's like in that vein of like Monopoly. It's a classic. It's a game that everybody should sort of try and play. So if it hadn't been for saying yes and trying those things, I'd have missed out on loads of games. Now, one thing that cropped up in the Facebook group when I mentioned this thing for tonight was about sort of, yeah, well, that's all well and good, but communities are fickle, and you get into a new game and then nobody plays it. And there's a fair comment in that. I do understand that maybe you need opponents. But what I would say for me is, how much do I really play a game versus how much enjoyment do I get from reading about the game, from reading the rules, from reading the background lore about a game, from painting the models, from spending time online sort of shopping for the models and looking at the things that I'd like to buy and finding out the news about the game, about what's coming up, and generally just being around people online, in online communities with other people who love that game too. I probably spend a lot more time on that side of it than I'll ever do on the playing side. No matter, even if I play sort of once, twice a week, I'll still spend more time on all of the other stuff. So there is a point where you say, yeah, okay, like, I'm not going to play it very often, so I'm not going to get into it. However, as long as you're getting enjoyment from that product, if you only get to play it once a month, if you only get to play it once every 3 months, but you get a lot of enjoyment and you get a lot of satisfaction from painting those minis, from collecting those minis, from reading the lore in the background, from being part of an online community, there's still a lot of benefit to that. And especially in the current day and age, in our current climate where getting games face to face isn't so easy either, you kind of you change your hobby, you alter your hobby to get the most enjoyment from it. So just because you think you might not get as many games of that as something else isn't always a reason to say no. Sometimes just to feel involved in a game and be in and around a game is sometimes enough reason to say yes. I still want to do some kind of research and some kind of documentary type thing about just how often people play games versus how much time they spend being in and around the hobby, be that painting or reading or list building or theory hammering stuff out, or just talking online to other people who are like-minded. I think the playing portion for the vast majority of people is much smaller than we think it is, and that actually sometimes maybe how many games of it you're going to play might not be the best deciding factor. Maybe just the models being nice enough might be reason to say yes. So yeah, buy what interests you. Say yes. Try new things. Try new games. Try board games. Try card games. I encourage you to get demos, be that on Tabletop Simulator. If you can get to a local store, ask somebody, if somebody's playing a game and you like the look of it, ask them if you can have a demo. Just say yes more often, and you'll be surprised that there'll be games out there that you might just never have come across. You might just find the game that you've always wanted. So, folks, that's it. That's me going rambling through a load of stuff I wanted to talk about there. I mean, there's been other games as well. Wild West Exodus is another example of a game that would have passed me by if I hadn't kept looking at those minis and kept looking at them and thinking, you know what it is? It doesn't matter. If I can get 1 or 2 games of this, like every now and again, that's enough for me to still enjoy being in and around these games. Right, let me dive back into some of this chat and stuff, and I'll see where we're up to. We were talking about sports games, Blitzball, David Moffat says, I've heard Aristea is where it's at. I like Aristea, don't get me wrong. However, in that hex-based combat games, if you like, it's not my favourite. Aristea has got some really good mechanics, but what stops it from being great for me is when you roll the dice, there's lots of different symbols, and those you have to get certain symbols to basically trigger activations, and they can trigger certain things as well. And it's almost like you do your movement, you roll the dice, and then there's this kind of weird pause in the gameplay where you go, right, what have I rolled? I've got 2 of that symbol, right? Your symbol there cancels out that symbol, and there's this weird kind of like part of the game where gameplay just freezes. You need to work a lot of stuff out, like matching up symbols, and then gameplay starts again, and that's a shame. I find a similar experience from Warhammer Underworlds in that weird kind of situation between rounds where you go, do you want to play a card? Right, I'm going to play a card. Do you want to play a card? Right, I'm going to play a card. Right, well, I've got no more cards to play. Right, well, I'm going to... That weird bit between rounds as well, whilst it's relatively straightforward, it's almost like a bit of a strange pause in the game that I'd rather not have, if you like. I'm going to try and pronounce that. Langwilges Profil says Blitzball is amazing. It is amazing, mate. Regis, you're 100% correct. Underworld's become my most favourite game. I'm not a big fan of deck building, which is why Underworlds will never kind of come out on top for me. I like what they've done with Beastgrave, where there's pre-formed decks now with the warbands. That was a huge step forward for me. But deck building for me is not something that I enjoy really, so that's why it's not kind of up there for me. Scott saying, I have Subbuteo. Subbuteo is quite well balanced, mate. There's no power creep in that. Nuclear Wargaming is here, man. Hello, how are you? Tony says, I have to decline on any game that involves another player these days due to real life and being put off by ultra competitive players. I know that's how you feel, Tony, but my advice would be don't let ultra competitive gamers put you off any game that you might be interested in. You never need to play ultra competitive gamers. It's not like you need to go to a tournament in order to get a game. If you can get one kind of like sort of local player who just likes to play how you play, the game's almost irrelevant. A lot of games, I'd rather play a not great game against a really fun opponent rather than my favourite game ever against sort of somebody that is a complete mismatch in how we both approach the game. And I've said this before. Competitive gamers get a bit of a bad rep, and competitive gamers are not like a disease. They're not a problem. They don't cause the problems in gaming. What causes problems in gaming is when mismatched kind of attitudes to a game get put together. So if you're a really casual player who just loves to kind of paint your models and put them on the table, and you want to try those weird kind of sort of combinations of just the models that you like, or you try to theme something, and you end up playing against somebody who just loves to test themselves against the best, you two will probably not have a very fun game. And that's not because either one of you is a dick, or if you like, it's probably more because you're looking for something different out of the game. And that's why I'm very careful about kind of seeing like sort of competitive gamers. Competitive gamers love playing games. Narrative gamers love playing games. Sort of painters who just like to put their models on the table still love playing games. It's just that they're all looking for something very different. Simon Dave said, I thought that for 40k. For some reason I decided it wasn't for me, but after trying it, loved it. There you go. I had a bad experience with 40k. It's put me off for years. I'm busy painting up some stuff now to give 9th edition a go. And I'll be honest, I'm getting a little bit kind of scared off is probably not the right word, but I'm getting a little bit kind of sort of wary of it because there's so much stuff coming at the minute in terms of different books with a different chapter to prove, and there's this Crusade book, and there's this new Terrain book. And I need to kind of be a bit of a grown-up about it and just go, look, ignore all of that. That's all optional. It doesn't change the fact that I've got the core rule book. I've got the point costs from what I got inside the Indomitus box. I'm just going to play with that and try it. And if I like it, then I can start buying codexes. Then I can start dipping into it and stuff. But I intend to give it a go and try it out this time. Davidson, yeah, the guy really influenced me to consider it. Says it's a great game for both new players and tactical players. It is a great game, mate. I wouldn't deny that. It's good fun. It's kind of, I love the way that you like. There's no factions in Aristea. You just pick the models that you like. Much like God Tier, you just pick the models you like. It's just that weird pause in the game where you start kind of counting up symbols, and maybe over time that's something that gets a lot faster. But for me, it was a bit of a sticking point, that was all. And I love Infinity's kind of universe and the stuff around it. Just had a donation there. What was that one? Pagan Situations said, I just showed my wife some terrain online and she said, just buy it. Should I be worried? No, mate, you've got a wife who is supportive in your hobby. Just buy it. That's what she said. Let's have a look. Where else are we at? Steve saying, I'm happy to give any game a try. It's one of the real good things about being in a local club. I agree, mate, as well. Like, if you're at a club that plays many different games, you're probably thinking, well, why is he talking about this? It's kind of obvious. But the amount of people that aren't at a club that play, either people that aren't at a club, full stop, or aren't at a club that play lots of different games. Like, for instance, my local sort of gaming group kind of play 40k, kind of play AOS. That's roughly about it. This may be a smattering of kind of X-Wing or something like that. A little bit of maybe. There's one kind of group of players. If Jimmy's in the chat at any point tonight, he knows he's one of those guys who play a bit of Frostgrave, a little bit of kind of Vanguard. They like to play a little bit of different stuff, but the main body of the group kind of plays GW stuff. Like if I wanted to go, right, who wants a game of Malifaux 3rd edition? You kind of look at me and go, oh, I'm not buying into more minis kind of thing. Who wants to give Wild West Exodus? I'm not buying more minis. I buy GW stuff. That's kind of, and unfortunately that can be difficult unless you're a bit more of a forceful, or if every group's got that person who introduces new games, if you like. GVC Paints is saying, I'm opening new games, but the Lead Mountain Cabinet of Figure Purgatory is literally £600 of gorilla in the hobby room. I think that's something we might have to talk about at some point, because that's kind of my point sometimes, is that we say yes to keep buying more of the same stuff because we think, well, I play that game, like I'll just keep buying more stuff for it, but it never gets built, it never gets painted, it never gets played. And it's almost that mentality of, well, if as long as I keep adding to the same mountain, that's acceptable. Rather than painting something. I've loved painting those Armada ships because I've never painted ships before. Like, they're really nice sculpts, don't get me wrong, which is helpful. They're a nice size, but it was such a nice change of pace, painting something completely different. And it made me want to go and paint something else now. Just changing it up. Tony, who's in the chat there, loves to kind of just go and buy the models he likes and just paints them. Doesn't really play the games, and that's perfect as well. It means you're not tied down to constantly having to try and find, like, game. I know we talk about miniatures games, but the vast majority of us like to collect stuff, and we like to collect nice stuff, and we like to paint minis. Well, when I say like to, we might do it at different standards, but we all love that part of the hobby as well. If you're just somebody that only gets enjoyment from playing games, you've probably already made your mind up about what game you want to play. But yeah, just trying something new, not saying no, not closing your mind to something because you think, well, I won't like that because I've heard it's like this game and I don't like that game, or I don't like historical games, or I don't like XYZ, I don't like fantasy games, I don't like sci-fi games. Just try it. Honestly, I wish we were in a different situation now where we could get to events, we could get to kind of to tournaments, we can get to weekend gaming events, we can get to all these different conventions. Because I would honestly encourage anybody to try new stuff. Excuse me. Matt's saying, if you try something and don't like it, at least you know you've tried it and don't like it. I agree, mate. There's plenty of games I've tried and not enjoyed. Blood Bowl being a perfect example, we've just been talking about it, is a perfect example of a game that I've tried and not enjoyed. Peter says, I never turn down a game if someone has it and you can try it out. Why not? Even if you don't like it, maybe they'll do the same for you one of your games later on. That's another great example, mate. It's about give and take. And actually, if somebody says, do you want to give this a try? And you go, nah, it's not really my kind of thing. There's going to come a time where you want to try something, and you'll say, I've just bought this new game and I've painted everything up. Do you want to have a game of it? And then they're probably more likely to just go, nah, it's all right, thanks. And it is about give and take. Sometimes, like I said before, sometimes playing a game that's not the best game in the world, but with somebody you enjoy playing games with, is far more rewarding than playing your favourite game against somebody that you never want to play again. Bruce is saying, have you ever tried Ragnarok Heavy Metal Combat in the Viking Age? Long name, I know. If not, you should. It's miniature agnostic. Two things, mate. One, I have heard of it. I heard it on a podcast. I think it might have been a Paint All the Minis podcast where I heard of it. And secondly, miniature agnostic games are not really my thing, funnily enough. I don't get the same enjoyment. And this is probably a subject all of its own, and I have tried this multiple times. I don't get the same enjoyment from miniature agnostic games that I do from games which have a model line that I can read about, I can look at online, I can see people's painting sort of paint jobs, and I can form a cohesive army from. I don't know why. I think it's something I'll need to kind of spend a bit of time in. But as soon as somebody says you can use any minis you want, part of me just goes, nah, it's not really for me. And I've tried playing these games, and it's a weird situation, and I don't fully understand why. Maybe it's something I need to explore a bit more. Paul's saying, given the amount of shit in our loft, I need to start saying no more often. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. It is dead easy to kind of for stuff to build up and build up. I would never encourage anybody to kind of buy something they don't really want or that they don't think they're going to use. Never go into debt to buy stuff. Like, don't go shopping above your means, kind of thing. But so if you just fancy something new and you've got spare cash to spend, treat yourself to something a bit different. Like, do you really need a kind of a 700th Space Marine? Do you really need another model for that same game that you're not using because you've probably still got stuff on the shelf that you've not painted yet? Like, just try something different. It's amazing that actually doing something completely different, trying something new, something completely different can really kind of motivate you. It might even motivate you to go back to go and doing your other stuff. Lord Ben saying now Blitz Bowl is a bit different. Yeah, it's similar enough to Blood Bowl that it kind of, you can use all the same models and it has the feel of Blood Bowl, the fun parts of it, but it's different enough that there's more of an element of randomness in it that stops it being kind of like which stops it being like chess. It stops it being like about kind of that sort of stuff. Because by all means, go and get the ball and then castle up in a corner and hold it. But you won't score any points by doing that, because the points are being scored by, I might score 3 points just by running 3 of my models this turn. I might score 3 points by injuring one of your players. It's much more fun, and the game is designed around having fun, not about just being the best player, if you like. And that's the kind of game I like. Tony saying, yeah, Blood Bowl put me off tabletop gaming forever. It's an exercise in misery. Yeah, Lord Ben saying, I believe isn't available easily in the UK. Yeah, it's not available at all in the UK. The only way to pick it up, it's available in Germany, I believe, and it's available in the US. And the only way to get it in the UK is to get it shipped from the US. And it's only available in Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble don't ship to the UK. So you need to know somebody who lives in the US who is very kind and will arrange for one to be sent to you. And that's how I've managed to get my hands on one. Howard Dave says he's just finished a High Elf and Orc team. Phil M says Blood Bowl is fun if you don't concern yourself with winning. I agree. However, if the person you're playing against concerns themselves with winning, then it's kind of out of your control. It's in bad and comical RNG rolls, random number generator rolls can lose you the game at any moment, even if you're a highly skilled player. I'd agree with that. However, if you are a highly skilled player, you will minimize the times that you need to make a roll that will screw it up for you. You'll do things in the right order so that you're minimizing the chances to screw up. A new player doesn't know that yet, and doesn't have as many games under their belt to know what they're up against and how to outplay their opponent. It's a punishing game from that point of view. Howard Dave says, you got me to say yes to Kings of War. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm really kind of disappointed I've not managed to get more games of it in because of the whole lockdown thing. It came in at a time I was building up and painting. I did the slow grow for it to get 2,000 points, and I was building up to the point in April where I would have 1,000 points of Kings of War dwarves painted. I had the date Mantic that was all planned. We were all going to go down there and play some games, 1,000-point games, and get people into get people playing and painting. And unfortunately, in the middle of March, we started to get things kind of locking down and stuff, which really kind of took the wind out of that a little bit, that slow grow for me personally. And I was still painting away in the background. I still got my army sorted, but I've just not managed to get the games in, basically. It's not something I can play at home. I don't have 2,000-point armies. I don't have another army I can kind of I can play against. And at some point, I hope lockdown eases and stuff and we can start to get some more games of that in. GVC says, do 28mm Napoleonics and go totally mental in a love-hate gaming experience. There's a game that I would ordinarily say no to. It's not something I want to go out and buy, I think. I'd happily have somebody give me a demo game of it, but it's not an aesthetic that would make me want to buy it purely just to paint the minis. If the rule set was truly kind of fantastic, I might kind of change my mind about it. if it was something I could play quite often, but not my opinion of the game, but the aesthetic for those particular minis don't really kind of scratch my itch. But I would still love to have a demo of it. Luke says, I'm what's known as an omni-gamer in the board game world. I love Ameritrash games and Euros and all the stuff in between and branches that come off everything. I will give almost all games a try. Yeah, I think I tend to be the person that introduces games to my sort of friends or players, if you like, the people that I play games with, be that my family, like my kids, my wife, be it like my friend. I tend to be the person that kind of says, I've got this new game, do you want to play it? So what tends to influence what we play are the things that appeal to me, either visually or whether I've heard something about it or whether I've had a demo of something in the past. And I think that shapes the games that we play a little bit. If I was a member of a board gaming club or I had more friends who played more games, maybe they would influence me as well. But technically, kind of the different clubs I've been to and things, it tends to be me that kind of sort of introduces folks to the new games. I was the one that kind of sort of brought Malifaux to my gaming club and started playing Malifaux. I was the one who went looking to go and play a kind of War Machine many years ago. And I think that's maybe my nature. Is maybe I'm the social butterfly who kind of says, I've got this thing, let's try it, kind of thing. So VGCN says, so glad you enjoyed Blitzball. I really think it's one of the most fun games around, and getting a chance to show it to more people is always a real pleasure. I honestly, I wish it was more widely available, mate. I think that the game probably doesn't get as much love as it deserves for that particular reason. Barry saying, Blitzball estimated delivery was October the 5th. Should be there soon, possibly held up in customs for a bit. No doubt, mate. I can imagine the deliveries and things like that, mate. I'm sure there's lots of delays at the moment. Horror Dave says, Carcassonne chat. Yeah, the cover, the box art for Carcassonne does not sell that game. It does not. It never ever made me want to buy it. It was not something I would have ever picked up off a shelf to even look at to see what it was about. If it wasn't bought for me as a gift, I'd never have played that game. Christian said, if you're not there already, come and join the awesome BlackJack community on Facebook. Thank you very much, mate. I think we're really close actually to 1,000 members in there now. Let me have a quick look and see, because it was pretty damn close last time I looked. We'll see where we're up to. We are at... I've just had a couple of people asking to join, so we'll add them in a second. Oh, we're at 997 members, and there's 2 people want to join, which will take us to 999. If we could get our 100th member tonight, that would be awesome. Our 1,000th member, I should say. And I'm coming up quick on my 9,000 subscribers as well. If there's anybody in the chat that isn't subscribed to the channel, I think I've got like 250 subscribers to go to hit 9,000 subscribers. That would be a nice. If I could end the year at 10, that would blow me away. I don't think there's enough time left in the year to end the year at 10, but who knows? You never know how these things work out. G Daddy Cliff, hello mate, how are you doing? He says, I've got to catch the chat for a bit. Nice to have you in. Howard Day says, catch me on Fumble VG. I have the same handle. Scott says, I love Carcassonne. I'm getting more of the expansion packs for it. Yeah, it's like I say, I've got a couple of expansions for it as well. And I would never have picked it up off the shelf, mate. I would never have picked it up with that artwork. It just kind of shows, doesn't it? Howard Dave says, how do I at people? Just type at and then whatever their exact name is in the chat here, and it'll highlight up on their screen, mate. Like for example, if anybody wants to kind of just to give me a nudge, if you want to ask me a particular question and you want me to make sure I see it, if you type at BlackJack Legacy, it comes up in a big orange bar on my screen, and I can see them standing out. JVC painting, good point. I spent 1% playing and 99% painting, reading, plotting, planning, scheming. I'm the same, mate. I mean, especially at the minute with kind of like lockdowns and stuff. But if I only played the games, if I only bought the games I thought I was going to get a chance to play, I would lose out on so much of the hobby that I enjoy. Like part of it for me is getting to talk about it, is getting to paint it and getting to look and see what other people are painting. Like at the minute I'm listening to Steps of Deliverance, I think it is, which is an audio book for Kings of War. It's just come out on audio book. I downloaded it with my Audible credit, and I'm really enjoying it. It's nice to kind of have that on in the background while I'm sitting maybe doing the thumbnails and stuff for videos, or if I'm sitting doing a bit of painting. It's nice to kind of involve myself in that kind of universe. There's a book coming out for Armada as well, and the same author is writing the book for Armada, who wrote the book for Kings of War. I forget his name now. Somebody Barber. I forget his first name. But yeah, he's a good author. I'm enjoying it. It's nice to have some kind of stuff. I know folks love listening to the Horus Heresy stuff or the Black Library stuff or reading those books. There's a whole part around the hobby that I think sometimes we think it's just about playing games, and actually, if we were to portion it out into percentages, I bet the vast majority of us spend a lot less time playing and a lot more time just engrossing ourselves in the universe and the painting and the shopping and the theory and the dreaming of which ones you want to buy and the I hope this comes out next and what's coming next, that kind of stuff. Matt says if it's a game I'm only going to play once in a blue moon, it needs to be simple to remember the rules, and I have to have a low model count for me. I agree, mate, to an extent. It's less about the low model count, but the rules do have to be relatively straightforward. As I mentioned before, Warcry is a perfect example of that. God Tier is a perfect example of that. Blitz Bowl is probably a great example of that. Even Kings of War, yes, you need a lot of models for it, technically, but that can be like a nice kind of long-term project. Kings of War, the rules themselves are actually really straightforward. They're one of the more straightforward rule sets that are out there. I never thought I'd say that 12 months ago. Like this time last year, Kings of War wasn't even on my radar. It was like I'd love to get into it, but it felt like a mountain to climb. And if it hadn't been for getting a demo of it, I wouldn't have completely did a U-turn and changed my mind on it. Krabby says, rumour has it that there will be a dance at 1,000 Facebook group members. No, there might be a dance at 10,000 subscribers, mate. If you can help me get that extra 1,200 subscribers, then there might be a dance. Andrew Fireback saying, make fake accounts now. Yeah, there is no dance for 1,000 Facebook members. But yeah, 10,000 subscribers is like, if I can get a 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, that's kind of like a little mini goal that I've always had. I never thought I'd get a 10,000 subscribers. I might never get there, to be fair. I might just kind of stop now, and that might be as far as it gets. But I'm not stopping the channel. I just mean nobody more might subscribe. But yeah, 10,000 for me is kind of at the point where I feel like all of the hard work's built to a point where that's just a nice number. Like anything after that's just, it is what it is kind of thing. But to get to 10,000 is a goal that I've always, like a personal goal I've had for myself. Tiberius says, wait, if you're doing an Audible bit, you should get that sweet shill money. I think there's a link actually in the description of the video where you can join Audible. There you go. There's my shill, I'm done, mate. If you, I should just add and clarify, if you do click the link, I make a small commission for sending you there. It's free for you. You get a free month's Audible, so you can download a book for free, keep it forever, cancel your subscription, never cost you a penny, and I make a small commission for sending you there. There you go. There's my shill bit done, mate. Stephen Stewart, hello. Says, really wish people were into Judge Dredd Strontium Dog minis. Both have cheaper minis. They use different activations than 40k, and Strontium Dog Starter comes with a nice MDF terrain. Hello, Stephen, first of all. Yeah, it does come with a bit of MDF terrain, mate. I was really surprised when I saw that. I think it's like anything. There is, if it's not 40k or it's not Games Workshop, most games have a much, much smaller kind of community, like way smaller in general. Even some of the bigger games, things like Malifaux, things like Kings of War, things like Infinity. They're big in they're big enough to support those companies. Even things like Bolt Action, to an extent, they're big enough to support those companies. But unfortunately, there are a lot of games out there that just it's not that people don't play them. I think more people play them than you realise. Otherwise, these companies wouldn't make and sell that stuff. But I just don't think people talk about them online so much. It's probably the kind of thing that people just buy and paint up and kind of play in the garage kind of thing. Or on the kitchen table. I think there's a lot more of that goes on. Like, just because a game is popular online doesn't mean it's a popular game. Like, in the scale of things, like there's not a lot of content online for Star Wars Legion, and yet it's something like the third most popular miniatures game that's out there from a sales point of view. That blows me away every time. Tiberius says, lap dance, you sexy monkey. David says, English culture question: why are Northerners always called monkeys? I think it's do you know what it is? Just being called a northern monkey. I'm not really sure what it is. You get people called like southern softies and northern monkeys. I don't know why, mate. I'll have to Google it and find out. VG says, never really dug the Judge Dredd IP. I liked Judge Dredd when I was a kid. I used to get the 2000 AD comics kind of handed down to me from an older cousin. It's a very kind of 80s British institution type thing, I think. Cheeky monkey. Tiberius says 50 quid for the Dread game is a bargain. I've not actually looked at it, mate, to see what's in the box for the Dread game. Dave says cheeky monkey is more of a northern term of endearment. It is, but I think it's almost there's a like people call northern people northern monkeys as a term of kind of like not of endearment, almost like as if you're kind of like some kind of sort of uncultured ape type thing. I think that's where it comes from, but no doubt we'll find out at some point. David says, I'd never heard of Strontium Dog until the game came out and instantly fell in love with the minis and aesthetic. Yeah, Strontium Dog was part of the 2000 AD kind of comic books, part of the whole Johnny Alpha and all of that kind of stuff. James Bray said, had Dread movie from a few years ago was amazing. I think you mean the one with Carl Urban in, isn't it? The one where they're inside that block of flats. Where is the kind of the bad guy, or the bad girl, I should say. Is it played by the woman that's from Game of Thrones? I forget her name now. I think it was. Joachim said, I love Judge Dredd. Have all the comics that were sold in Sweden. Only sold for 2 years. One day I'll buy that game, even though it won't get to play it. Were they translated, Joachim, or were they kind of straight in English? Because I do wonder, because there was some strange words in there. I wonder how they translated. Tiberius saying, careful, Hartlepool folk hang monkeys. Mike G says, hey all, sorry I'm late. Was doing some yard work and throwing the dog's ball. Sounds like you've been busy, mate. Yeah, Palmsy says, in the UK there's a bit of a north-south, friendly, unfriendly divide. There is, mate, and I think it's quite sort of, a lot of it's to do with kind of the north is seen as very working class, the south is seen as a bit more middle class on a very generalistic term kind of thing, like coal mining, kind of manual labour, sort of steelworks, shipbuilding was all very northern based. And then you have obviously like London was a lot of kind of like banking and kind of city based, I guess, and that's kind of how it was. Yeah, James saying there, Cersei Lannister actress. I forget what her name is now. She's been in a few things, but I forget what she's called. Lena Headey, that's it. Yes, thank you very much, Dave. Yeah, Big Mama, that's who it was, mate. Krabby saying, I've been listening to the Fabius Bile book on Audible. Very good character, far more complicated than I thought. I'll need to use your free trial to download another. I'm pretty sure, mate, if you set it up on a different email address, you get the free trial again. Not that I'm recommending anybody do that, but there you go. Luke saying, yeah, you're right. She plays Mama in the movie. Rumours of Netflix picking it up for a TV show with Carl Urban to keep it going. Not actually happening. Yeah, I can imagine Carl Urban's a bit kind of hot property again now with the boys and stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if something like that kind of come off. Peter says, I'm out early shift again tomorrow. Have a great one. Thank you very much, mate. Take care. Steve says, I thought that being a police force in Dread would provide some awesome narrative missions like bank heists and high-speed chases and solving murders. And Strontium Dog sounds like you can use any minis. I remember going to Warlord and having a wander around their studio and chatting to some of the painters and stuff, and they were painting the Judge Dredd minis at the time before it had been announced that they were coming out. And obviously I was kind of sort of held to secrecy over the thing, but it was fantastic just seeing the studio painters painting them up. They're beautiful minis, they are really nice. The kind of thing I wouldn't mind just picking up purely, not even to play the game possibly, but just to paint, to kind of bring back some of that 80s nostalgia for myself. James saying that Dread movie was 8 years ago. What is time? What exactly, mate? What was it? I tell you what, I was watching tonight before I came on the live stream. I was watching a documentary thing on Amazon about Guns N' Roses, who I like my kind of my favorite band of all time, if you like. They were the first band I ever went to see live, and they were talking about the Appetite for Destruction album, and I was 12 when it come out, and I can remember buying it. Here's a long story, completely off topic. I used to sing in a church choir, and the reason I sang in a church choir was you used to get paid to sing at weddings. So my Saturday job was singing in a church choir, and I remember the choir mistress, the woman that used to kind of teach us to sing these kind of songs for these weddings, bought us all a gift voucher for Christmas. And for Christmas, I spent my gift voucher on Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. And I think I was like 11 or 12 at the time. And I couldn't believe that's how long ago it was. And it was like, my God, like how time has just disappeared. There you go. Steve Bonner, hello mate. He says Stallone Dread is still a great view to the comics, was different judge, but Carl Urban Dread is amazing. I still love the old Stallone one as well, mate. I am the law. Samuel Days is off to bed, early start as well. Cheers for the stream. Thank you, mate. VJ saying that he's reading the Fabius Bile books at the minute. Tybee says, I've always wondered how Americans take the Dread street names. Do they understand Jack McDuckworth Heights and Des O'Connor Boulevard? That's what I was kind of worrying about, it being translated. Like, is it translated literally, or is it like, does it keep the English terms because it doesn't understand why these certain words are there, or does it convert it into kind of that kind of culture stuff? Andrew says, glad to see y'all overseas have the same north-south here thing we have here. It must be not so much as North and South Korea, I'd imagine, but yeah, it still exists. JVC Paints is off the word, guys. Happy painting and modelling. Enjoy your work, dear mate. Barry says the recent Dread movie was great. I enjoy the Judge Dredd game. I like the chip activation with the star. I'll have to do a bit more digging about it. VG is sounding the Gunners. David Moffat says, can anyone say if Strontium Dog is compatible with the Judge Dredd game? I'm pretty sure the rules are I think the rules for Judge Dredd were based upon the Strontium Dog rules. I'm not sure if the two games are compatible though. Luke says, I'm imagining belting out getting the ring in the middle of a Sunday service. I don't think I ever went to Sundays, mate, to be fair. I'm not like a particularly religious person. I used to be in the Cub Scouts, basically, and our Cubs were at like a church hall, and I think they basically kind of said, like, can anybody sing? Would anybody like to join the church choir? You get paid for singing at weddings, and it was like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. That beats delivering papers in the cold. Like a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon, like I can manage that. And yeah, I still remember getting paid like relatively well for it, like versus kind of a paper round or a milk round or something like that. So yeah. The Tasty Brain Drain says, as someone from the States where the North versus South is kind of a big thing, I find it fascinating that there are other countries who also have such a divide, like Italy, for example. Yeah, I wonder if there's just something in it that just comes back from before people could travel the world to have world wars, like between countries. There was just like a lot of civil fighting between North and South. I mean, from a British point of view, even like Scotland and England have that kind of historical history of fighting across borders and stuff. Stephen Stewart says, man, English people love Guns N' Roses. I've heard more than one Brit on YouTube talk about seeing them live. I think what happened was, mate, and this is something that cropped up in the documentary I was watching tonight, Guns N' Roses actually became famous in the UK first. So part of Geffen Records, who was the company that basically they were signed to, part of their plan was to make them big in the UK and then almost take them to the US and take them as this big successful rock band kind of thing, even though they were from LA. And it kind of, that was part of how it panned out a little bit, really. So I think that was, I think there's an element of that in the background. James Brace says, sing us a church choir Guns N' Roses medley, mate. The day my voice dropped, mate, was the day the day my voice broke, my balls dropped, was the day I lost that job, mate. I had to go and get a paper round then. You don't want to hear me singing now. Vijay says, okay, daylight savings is kicking in over here, so I've got to get the little bloke ready for daycare. I will be listening though. Okay, mate. Speak soon. James says, sad that all the cinemas are being closed around here. I'm so excited to see June, but I feel now it's going to be delayed. I was just watching that on the news tonight, mate, about cinemas and stuff, and it's weird. Like there's so many like industries that I don't even like sort of consider who are really kind of just finding they're closing their doors. I was watching on the news tonight. They were talking about all of these sort of like outward bound type centres where like kids go during the summer holidays, or where schools take their kids for like Easter weekends or whatever. Like they've basically seen something like a 99% drop in income. It's scary, mate, isn't it? It's a scary world. David Moffat says, heck, I'd sing Choir for money. Luke says, I think Stallone movie was great too, but Urban Dread really nailed it. Yeah, I think the difference with the Urban one was he stayed very true to the character, where I think Stallone was such a famous person. He wanted to take that mask off. He wanted his face on camera, didn't he? Where are we up to? Tony said, I think Northern Monkeys might have something to do with Hartlepool. I'm not sure if it does, mate. That like I know the whole Hartlepool monkey reference, but I'm not sure whether it's directly linked to that or not. I think whether it's something else. Steve says, I like Springfield and Shelbyville. Oh, like Springfield and Shelbyville. Yeah, probably, mate. Jason says, I had a bud from Leeds that absolutely loved Guns N' Roses. I think it's just maybe it's an era thing. I think it was of a time where, if you think like in that time in the 80s, it was probably things like New Kids on the Block were probably like big at the time. I think when Guns N' Roses went to number one, they knocked Tracy Chapman off the top of the charts. That's kind of like what they were up against. They weren't the kind of the heavier sort of like Metallica type stuff, and they weren't the kind of like the 80s hair and makeup of like things like Poison. So yeah, I think they just carved out their own little niche. Love Maiden says, yes, we want to hear you sing, see you dance, listen to you whistle. I tell you what, mate, maybe when I get to 10,000. Tony says, to be fair, Slash is from Stoke. Yeah, he was, wasn't he, mate? Christian says, don't forget to use the affiliate link. Thank you very much, Christian, buddy. Horror Dave says, would you say Vanguard is a gateway game? Vanguard is a good game, mate. I don't think Vanguard is a gateway game to Kings of War because it's so different from a you could, maybe you could say it is. You can use your models from Vanguard in Kings of War. However, Kings of War uses so many more models. And I think Kings of War is an easier game to play. If you want to play Kings of War, I'd almost skip Vanguard and just go straight and play it. If you just want to play a miniatures game in the Kings of War universe, or you like some of the Kings of War models, but you don't want to paint that many, maybe Vanguard's a good entry point. But I maybe like in the same way as I don't see Warcry as a gateway to full AOS because the rules are different. Like if you go and pick sort of Corvus Cabal because you like the models, and then you go, oh, I think I might play AOS now. Yes, you can use them in like a Slaves to Darkness army, but it's limited in there. You'd have to buy a lot more stuff, and the rules are very different. You'd be better off just going straight for the bigger game. It might tempt people, I would say, to kind of like to look further and see what other games are available. But I would choose it on its own merits. If you're looking for a skirmish level fantasy game, I think Vanguard's a great game. But if you're looking to get into it with the idea of maybe getting into Kings of War, I think you're probably better off just cutting out some bits of cardboard the size of the bases for Kings of War, pushing some around the table, and see if you like it. The rules are free. Just see if you like it, kind of thing. Arnold says, how would you be able to play all cool new games? I don't even have the time to play the ones I already got. Don't even talk about new minis by Pile of Shame. This is my job, mate. It's my job to play all these new games. That's why. Horror Days says, also thoughts on the Warcraft film. I'm not a massive sort of Warcraft fan anyway, mate. So I couldn't tell you how close it stays to the kind of to the games and stuff and the lore. But I didn't think it was a bad film. As far as just, to me, random fantasy film, it was all right. James says the Dread 2012 benefit from being a small contained story too. Setting it inside that the apartment block thing, mate, was a stroke of genius, really, wasn't it? David saying, to be fair, Carl Urban is far more badass than Sly Stallone. He might be badass, but he has an awful accent in The Boys. I really wish they'd just made the character Australian, because his Cockney accent really grates on me, I'll be honest. Tim says, hi all, not staying long, new job is knackering me. First of all, mate, congrats on the new job. Second of all, I hope you're not too tired, mate. Take it easy. Dave says Guns N' Roses were sleaze rock. I wouldn't say they were sleaze rock. They were rock and roll. They were proper rock and roll, really. They weren't metal, and they weren't kind of glam rock type kind of sort of stuff. Guns N' Roses were the bad boys. Tiberius says, what got me about GNR is the way they were billed as the most dangerous band in the world, and they have songs about lawyers and getting divorced. I think they were the most dangerous band in the world because they really did sort of drink and take drugs the way rock and roll was described, but most bands didn't. I think they basically burned themselves out because of the drink and drugs, mate. Andrew Fairbanks says, stopped caring about the COVID thing. We didn't shut down for polio, and the virus turned children into pretzels. It doesn't. I'll be honest, mate. It doesn't really matter whether you care about it or not. That the world is in a place now where you have to. It's not like you can say, I don't care about it, I'm still going to go on holiday kind of thing, because half of them holidays are not available. You can't go, and if you do go, you have to abide by the new rules. So whether you care about it or not, it's happening, mate. Krabby says, I like Guns N' Roses. Also, monkey hangers was from historical naval battles. Powder monkeys were how children on old warships were referred to as they were dirty. I wonder if that's how you get like a dirty northern monkey kind of thing, mate. It might be that to do with powder battles. The monkey hanger thing, mate, wasn't so much about naval battles. It was more to do with when there was a French ship came to port in Hartlepool, and there was a monkey on the ship, and they thought it was a French spy. So they hung the monkey because they thought it was a French spy that was coming to kind of steal the secrets. That's where the monkey hanger thing comes from. Tiberius says, I'd say Kings of War is a gateway game to Vanguard, because if you paint a 1500-point army, you'll have enough models in leftovers for your base. And there is that effect, mate, to be fair. I wouldn't disagree with that. Busey says, I only had the pirate Guns N' Roses tapes they sold at the market. Remember those photocopied sleeves in them? I think one had spaghetti hoops on. That was a later one, mate. So that was the spaghetti incident. But yeah, Appetite for Destruction was their first album, and it's still one of the greatest albums, I would say now. Curry says he was listening to GNR today. Tybee says Bowie's son Duncan made the Warcraft film. I didn't know that, mate. Luke saying, if you love the Dread movie, then watch The Raid. I'm confident they borrowed the story for Dread straight from. I've seen The Raid, mate, and yeah, I think they might have borrowed it straight from it. David says, I've been telling my wife how bad Carl Urban's accent is. She didn't believe me. It is awful, mate. Like, it keeps like dropping in and out. He can't keep it up for long enough. Every now and again, you'll go, what accent is he actually doing now? Is he Australian? Is he American? Is he trying to be English? It's an awful accent, mate. I really wish they'd just written I know he's meant to be a Cockney in the comic books. I wish he'd just been Australian in the TV series. It would have made it a lot better. Tim saying, brilliant director. Watch Moon if you haven't. I didn't realise he was the same director who did Moon, mate, to be fair. Moon is a good film. James says, wait, what? I just started watching The Boys and I thought he was supposed to be Australian, and the joke was that everyone thought he was English because Americans can't tell the difference. He's in the comic books, mate. Billy the Butcher is a Cockney, and he's trying to do a Cockney accent. It is awful. Lord Maiden said, I thought it was Axl Rose was controlling and Slash had just had enough. I think it got to that point where basically Axl Rose was basically so kind of out of control because of drunk. He had basically kind of like sort of mental health problems. He had schizophrenia. He had drug problems, he had drink problems, and he was basically he surrounded himself with people who basically just kind of fed into that paranoia, and that was basically the final straw of it, basically, mate. Busey said, also around the same era they sold Game Boy carts with 60 in one of those markets. Fun snaps. I remember that, mate. I remember buying a Game Boy on my first ever lads holiday to Tenerife. It was a silver Game Boy, and it came with one of those 60 in one cartridges. Tiberius says, on Duncan Jones, he's got the Rogue Trooper job, always back to 2000 AD. There you go. Christopher Warden said it's a pile of potential. Yeah, potentially never get done, that's what it is. Paul said, I put JNR into what I call attitude rock. They did rock and roll music well, but they did it with a bit of swagger. Oasis did the same thing. It was all about attitude and swagger. Yeah, I agree. I think Guns N' Roses, though, had some classics as well that kind of bridged that gap that went from rock into mainstream. Things like November Rain, things like Sweet Child of Mine made them very much mainstream. Like some of their other stuff would never have propelled them to mainstream stuff. Things like Night Train, It's So Easy, those kind of stuff would never have kind of bridged the gap, I think. Crowley says we could be like an alternative GNR with my singing, his singing and my dancing. Dear says Peter Hartlepool never read books by Charles Darwin, apparently. I don't know how far it's true, mate. That I don't know whether it's just an old folklore. I don't even know if it's true. Crabby says, I'm pretty sure the actual story was that it was a boy they hung, not an actual monkey, but the same thing. I think the whole thing is that's why they call the monkey hangers. Even Hartlepool's mascot for their football club is called Hangers the monkey. But yeah, that's the kind of the folklore story, mate. Really love the Warcraft movie, never played the game. Yeah, I've never played. I've played about an hour of the Warcraft game. My kids wanted me to play it with them, and I've played about an hour of it. And I realised it was just kind of grindy. I think I was catching chickens or something, and I thought, yeah, this is not the game for me. David says, got to go and pick the kid up. Thanks for the show and the confirmation on Carl Urban. Yeah, you can tell her from me, mate. It is an awful accent. James says, okay, guys, Trump just told everyone not to be afraid of COVID and not let it dominate our lives. So pandemic over. I read that, mate, just before I came on the live stream. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Michigan Supreme Court struck down all of our governor's executive orders are unconstitutional. I don't know much about that, mate. Pomsy saying Oasis had classics, bro. Oh, I agree, mate. Oasis had classics as well. I liked Oasis too. But what I mean is that I think Guns N' Roses were at their peak a bigger band, I think, than Oasis were at their peak. Tony says Urban is from New Zealand, and I always find people from Australia and New Zealand always sound terrible trying to do a Cockney accent. Yeah, I forgot he's from New Zealand. He's certainly not got an English accent, that's for sure. Outside Dice Podcast says Roses, Motley Crue for proper rock and roll. The film, the Motley Crue film, I forget what it's called now, but that film is really good actually. John Estel says, didn't Hangers become the mayor of Hartlepool? He definitely ran for mayor. I'm not sure whether he got the job or not. Tony says, I wish they'd played Get in the Ring on the radio. Yeah, you'll not hear that on the radio very often, mate, will you? Ty Beaver says, I think Guns were categorised in the pantheon of rock as hard rock. I suppose they had to try and make up some kind of some category for them. Mark Corley says, Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins' worst Cockney accent ever. No, mate, it's not anymore. Dick Van Dyke nailed a Cockney accent compared to what Carl Urban is doing currently. Mark says, done for the night, 3 games in, lost 2-1. Need to keep an eye on those challenges. It's all about the challenge cards, mate, honestly. I found the same thing from Blitzball as well. It uses that same kind of moving river of challenge cards. It's exactly the same, mate. It works well. The Tasty Brain Drain, the Motley Crue film is called The Dirt. That's the one, mate. I quite enjoyed that. Plus, it's rare that foreign actors get British accents right beyond received pronunciation. Yeah, I think the problem, especially with the Cockney accent, is it's quite, especially to kind of to English people or to British people, it's a very specific accent. It's the same when people try to do like a Newcastle accent, or they try to do an Irish accent, or they try to do a Scottish accent, and like like a Scottish accent is like like Scotland's just one big accent. They try to do this kind of generic Scottish accent, but you'll know, especially Tiberius, you'll know an accent from Edinburgh is nothing like a Glaswegian accent, nothing like a Fife accent, nothing like an Aberdeen accent. They're all completely different. Bruce is saying, I must be one of the oldest people in here. GNR, okay, but Led Zeppelin for me is the best. Cream and Black Sabbath. Yeah, we're going back to kind of 70s and stuff there, though, mate. This is just, I'm just, because I watched a documentary about them, that's why I mentioned it. And because it was my era. I was like sort of 12, 13 when Guns N' Roses were hitting their peak. Paul saying, for foreign actors, the Cockney accent is a massive risk. In your head, you're doing the best Guy Ritchie. In reality, you're all core blimey governor. Yeah, I wouldn't even want to do a Cockney accent, and I'm from the UK. Palmsy said, interesting point. I think Guns were more famous because they were American. I think song for song, Oasis can compete. Oh, I disagree, mate. I disagree. Yeah, I disagree big style. Crabby saying, whoa, Dick Van Dyke is not a Cockney. Tony saying, Angus, or rather the guy in the monkey suit, did actually become mayor. There you go, mate. He did get the job in that case. And David Mackey says, I can barely do an English accent and I was born here. James says, wash, dry brush and recess shade finish on 10 Necron Warriors. Nice one, mate. I like the fact you can blast through them a little bit. Kieran saying, worst accents competition. See, Keanu Reeves in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yeah, it's not great, mate. I'll give you that one. It's not a great accent. I'm trying to think who else has had some awful accents. I'll tell you who's got an awful English accent, and he is English. He's actually from Newcastle. Is Charlie Hunnam. So Charlie Hunnam is the guy that plays Jax in Sons of Anarchy. He was in the recent Guy Ritchie film called The Gentleman. He was in King Arthur. He was in Pacific Rim. He has an awful English accent now. And I don't know why, because he's from Newcastle. Tasty Brain Drains, I still have yet to see it, though I want to. I'm a bit of a Crew fan. It's an awesome film. I'm sure a lot of it is kind of a bit poetic license, but it's a really, really good film about their life. Jeffrey Higgins says, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Faith No More, one of the best concerts I ever attended. Nice one. Bruce Patton says, did Brad Pitt do a proper one in Snatch? The one that Brad Pitt did was kind of like almost like a traveller, like Irish accent. And it actually wasn't too bad. There's a lot. I know a few Irish people who don't sound that dissimilar from that. Tim just throwing a curveball in there saying Blur were better. Do you know what it is? I was an Oasis fan over Blur, but Blur had some awesome songs. But they did have some good songs. Tiberius said Mel Gibson in Braveheart. Mel Gibson did a better Scottish accent than Carl Urban is doing a Cockney one, that's for sure. Yeah, VG saying, look, Gary Oldman was so good in Dracula. It offset Keanu being so bad. Gary Oldman was good in it, but that haircut, that weird haircut that he had in that film. Krabby says, Spice Girls are all saints. Spice Girls all day, mate. Stephen says, they always use English actors in American roles, and when they try and do a Southern accent, I think it's like it becomes like stereotypical, really, doesn't it? It almost becomes like a parody of itself sometimes, unless they get really good voice coaches. Scott Longworth says, worst accent was Mel Gibson's Scottish accent. David Mackay says, painted some more Ogre Witch, you get it finished eventually. A nice one, mate. Tiberius saying, Edward Woodward in The Wicker Man gets bad press, but was actually excellent. Yeah, it was pretty good, actually, mate. Tiberius says, never mind Blur and Oasis, Suede were the boss. I wouldn't disagree with you, mate. Suede were a bit earlier than the Oasis Blur thing. But, yeah, I was a big fan of Suede as well, mate. Lord Maiden says, try Tim Curry's Romanian voice in Congo. It sounds Russian. I think whenever anybody in a film tries to do sort of any Eastern European accent, it all just sounds Russian. It doesn't matter where they're from. It's just that stereotypical Eastern European type thing. They can be from anywhere. Paul says, I judge a band by the number of skip tracks on their album collection. Blur would generally have 2 or 3 skip tracks per album. Oasis did 3 albums before they released a skip track. In your opinion, mate, there are still tracks I would skip from Oasis. Horror Dave says, I might as well go full monk and say the Stone Roses are the GOAT. Oh, Stone Roses, mate. Stone Roses are the OGs, aren't they? Oasis were just Stone Roses, basically. They just carried it on. Dave says, Nicolas Cage and The Wicker Man deserved an Oscar. I can't tell if you're being serious or not there, mate. It was good in it, to be fair. Tony says, I can't believe I am seeing Blur versus Oasis happening all over again. It's these live chats, mate. What can I say? Lord Maiden says, I in fact tried Tim Curry in Rocky Horror Picture Show and Richard O'Brien in Shock Treatment. Paul says, there's definitely Oasis skip tracks. They just don't occur until the 4th album. Oh. Maybe not. I'd have to go back. I can't remember the albums that well, to be fair. PG and Duncan beats Oasis any day. Nick Cage in Star Wars was the best thing ever. I must have missed that, mate. Ocean Colour Scene. Ocean Colour Scene, actually, I've seen live a couple of times. And whilst they don't have a great collection of songs that I kind of remember, they were a good band. I enjoyed them live. Neeson, I was going to say. Neeson in Star Wars. Oh. Liam Neeson, to me, though, is almost... He's like the Irish Sean Connery. He's just Liam Neeson in everything. Like Sean Connery plays Sean Connery in everything. Like only Sean Connery could play a Russian submarine captain with a Scottish accent. Krabby saying, if you give me a Creedence Clearwater Revival or a Chris Stapleton and a glass of whiskey, I'm a happy man. Beauty saying Oasis definitely had the monopoly on all pub music at the time. I think the problem with Oasis is they almost became so commercial that like it was that they were just everywhere. And I think almost I can imagine it was probably like the Beatles back in the day type thing. I think some of the polish gets lost because it was overplayed, I think, at the time. I think that's the difference. Lord Maiden says, actually, do you think the actor who was in the Darth Vader suit would have the worst accent for a character? David Prowse, who plays Darth Vader. I watched something recently about like all the extras and stuff. I think it might be on Netflix. It might be called like something like Pinewood Studios or something like that. And it's about all the different extras that were in Star Wars, and Dave Prowse is part of that. And he's got a really strong Bristolian accent. And I can imagine it just didn't fit the character. But I get the impression that they never told him it wasn't going to be his voice, or they didn't. It wasn't until later they changed their mind. Scott saying Arctic Monkeys. Yeah, Arctic Monkeys, mate. I like Arctic Monkeys. Dre or Tupac? Dre for me, mate. Dre. Andrew says Vince Vaughn only plays himself in whatever movie he's in. So does who's the other one I was just going to say? Mark Wahlberg. He's the same. He plays Mark Wahlberg in every film he's in as well. Scott saying Tupac. I'll tell you what I've been watching recently as well. I've just binge watched the whole series over the weekend while I've been doing DIY in the house. Is Sneakerheads on Netflix. I've really enjoyed that. If anybody's into the trainers, into the sneakers, Sneakerheads is a really good TV series. It's kind of like a comedy thing, but yeah, it's good fun. Palmsy says that's why they had better songs than GNR. No, they didn't have better songs. They were just more mainstream, mate. That's the problem. Steve says a Bristol Darth Vader. Now that would be awesome. There's loads of footage, mate, online where you can see him actually saying the lines, and it doesn't fit the character. Let's put it that way. I'm sure they mustn't have told him that he wasn't going to be his voice. I'm sure I read somewhere, or I might have saw online, that he only found out it wasn't his voice when he went to see the film, when they had the premiere. Paul says, my girlfriend shouted at me the other day and told me to stop singing Wonderwall. I said, maybe. Tiberius says, Johnny Depp plays Keith Richards in every film he's in. He's only done that since Pirates of the Caribbean, mate. Prior to that, I think Johnny Depp is a fantastic actor. The problem is he's almost typecast himself into that kind of Jack Sparrow role now. But like when he was in Secret Window, he's really good in it. He's good in Edward Scissorhands. He's pretty good in Sweeney Todd. What was it? What was the other one I'm thinking of? The Roman Polanski film. He's in a Roman Polanski film where he plays like a kind of like a detective type thing, and I forget what it's called now. It's a brilliant film. Is it The Ninth Gate? It might be. It's a brilliant film. Michael Roscombe says, "Yo, is this about Monday Night Football?" No, just got my helmet there, mate. I'm a Rams fan. That's why it's there. I need to press a button on my TV because it says it's going to turn itself off in a second. Let me just press that there. Marcus says, "I've met David Prowse and his voice was just not intimidating." Yeah. He's not intimidating, but his physical size was. Ian says, "Best rapper is Yazrick, hands down." David Mackay says, "Night all, get some kip. Even working from home, I've got to get up early." Yeah. No rest for the wicked, mate. Horrid Dave says, "Would a skirmish game campaign be possible a la mini wargaming when COVID goes?" Would a skirmish game campaign be possible a la mini wargaming when COVID goes? Explain what you mean, mate. I don't watch mini wargaming, so tell me what you mean. Jacob says, "Prowse and Cushing acted together in Hammer Frankenstein prior to Star Wars. Lucas must have been a fan of horror movies." They did, mate, and David Prowse was also in A Clockwork Orange as well, which is where I think George Lucas saw him. He was in A Clockwork Orange, and this all come out in this thing that I was watching. Tyrese, I bet you look both ways crossing the road. Yeah, for those that don't know, he was also the Green Cross Code man. Paul said, "I watched Depp in The Tourist and it was great. He was anything but Keith Richards." Yeah, I think I think once he became so kind of sort of, whenever you saw him, you just saw Jack Sparrow after that. And he's obviously had a few kind of drug issues or alcohol issues where he was a bit slurry and stuff. But yeah, he's been in some amazing films. He's an awesome actor. He's fantastic in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, for example. From Hell. No, the Jack Ripper film From Hell, he was great in that one as well, mate. Horrid Day says, "As in you host one of us to play on the channel." Oh, sorry, mate. Yes, I understand. Yes, yeah. That, to be honest, that was always part of the intention. It's just that I started doing this full time in June, and that was basically at the point when we were all locked down. I've not managed to kind of like open it up, but yeah, certainly, mate. Certainly, once things get back to some kind of normal and I can start to have people at home and stuff, and not with masks and all that kind of stuff on. Yeah, definitely that's something we'll do, mate. Jacob's in the From Hell graphic novel's pretty good. I didn't realise it was a graphic novel, mate. Did the novel come first? Like, did the graphic novel come first, or was it, like, I know it's based on Jack the Ripper, but was the From Hell graphic novel first? Dave Doyle says he picked up a dude in a wheelchair and moved them both across the room in A Clockwork Orange. That was it, mate. Yeah, that was what he did. Jacob says you never know where the live streams are going to end up the conversation. Love it. They do kind of go a bit. I mean, I have a topic, because what the topics do is they give me something to kind of structure it round. It might interest people to come and check it out if they don't normally check out a live stream. But then really it's a community thing. Whatever you chat about in the live chat is what I'm going to chat about. Like, it doesn't always have to be about tabletop stuff. Like, we are a community, so I talk about whatever crops up. Tiberius says, "My favourite bit of Star Wars trivia is that Peter Cushing wore slippers on any camera setup. You couldn't see his feet. Tartan ones, including the Alderaan scene." Steve Evans says, "Darth Vader drinking a pint of cider on the Death Star." Yes. I can see that, mate. I can see that one. Marcus says, "Oh yeah, I'm 5'9" and Prowess and Peter Mayhew dwarf me. And I've felt that sort since I was a kid." Crabby says he turns up at hospitals to cheer dying kids in full pirate gear. He gets a free pass. Yeah, I'd agree, mate. As well, he's meant to be a very nice guy. He's had some issues, obviously, in his time, but yeah, I like him as an actor. If he's going to be if he's in a film, I'm genuinely interested to see what that film is. Like, he's fantastic in Donnie Brasco. He certainly doesn't play Keith Richards in that. I've not seen Transcendent, actually. Jacob says the graphic novel came first by Alan Moore. Busey said, I think we were wearing masks for the rest of our lives. We have to play with them on, unfortunately. I think at some point, mate, there has to be a change. I don't think we'll be wearing masks forever. We weren't wearing masks that recently, to be fair. So I think there'll come a point where that'll relax a little bit. But yeah, I think it's some way off yet. Pomsy saying you're back on Wednesday. Yeah, I'll be back on Wednesday, mate. Last week was just because I was filming the bat rep, which everyone saw on Thursday. I had to get that one done, mate. So yeah, I'll be back on Wednesday. Dave saying, has anyone watched The Expanse on Amazon? I've not seen it, mate, but a few people have told me it's pretty good. Ian says, I'd be interested in a future topic on your aversion to miniature agnostic games, and if there's anything you think that they might need to be more successful than they are. I think one of the biggest issues, mate, is because they don't have a miniatures range. As I mentioned before, most people sort of paint minis, get into the background lore of a game, like listening to audiobooks, like listening to podcasts, like being part of an online games community and stuff like that. I think more people enjoy that than they do actually playing their games. I'm sure there are some people who only play games, right? Don't get me wrong. But I think there's vast majority, or there's a lot more, spend more time in the hobby side of things. And I think that's why miniature agnostic games just don't have that kind of a following, really, is because people don't play the games as often. And those kind of games that don't have a miniatures line associated with them, they don't really they don't get out there in front of people. There's obviously exceptions to the rule. Things like Frostgrave kind of broke out from that. But generally, they end up being really niche, small communities who like to play those kind of games. So I think that's why they basically get overlooked, is because if you've got a load of minis, the chances are you're probably playing something else with them. And if you're sort of buying a rule set because you've got loads of minis you can use, I think what happens is people chop and change and they change the different rule sets they play. I'm sure that like every game will have its kind of devotees, if you like, but they'll never grow to the size of like a 40k or of a let's say a Kings of War, or they'll not grow to the size of a I can't even think now, like AOS or Warcry. Like you can use 40k minis in any game you want. Like you can use them in a fantasy game if you want to, but people don't. Purely because I think there's a link to the hobby side of things, and then involving yourself in the world around those minis that's being created for those minis. Marcus says Johnny Depp is as weird as much as he's a good person. Scott says, night folks, off to bed. He's at work early in the morning. Take care, mate. Don't work too hard. Bruce is saying the Expanse is great if you like sci-fi based, more in science, less in fantasy. Yeah. Jason says he works in a nursing home. I have a feeling I'll be wearing PPE for a very long time. Something tells me, mate, in a nursing home, I think you certainly will be, mate. Tyree says, I loved it where the cargo ship turned up in the Expanse. With some space mosque shipping containers. Lord Baden says, could be that the miniature agnostic games get released and then there's no news about it. I think there's an element of that, mate. There's no news because, like, it's a funny one, right? So if I'm a company and I'm selling miniature agnostic games, I basically sell the rules, okay? Those rules on their own, like, will only make so much money. Like most companies make their money from selling the miniatures. So you're not going to make a fortune from it. So then do you focus on making expansions? Do you focus on bringing, like, you're not going to play test like more and more armies or spend a lot of time like rebalancing them. Excuse me, because there's no money in it. You might bring out an expansion down the line, but generally what will happen is they'll write another rule set, or they'll write a second edition for the rule set or something like that. There's just not a lot of money in it, mate, so they tend to end up being very niche, very mainstream. They tend to be written by kind of like somebody that's always wanted to write a game, and so that then they might either self-publish it, or they might get someone like Osprey to publish under their banner or something like that as a publishing house. They're just niche. They're just niche because the vast majority of people who get into this hobby get into it because they want to build and paint miniatures, basically, I think, and then play with them on a tabletop. And because if you go and buy minis, there's already a rule book that's written for them, if you like. Horror Dave says, is there a sci-fi version of Armada or Black Seas? Excuse me. I think the closest, mate, will be something like Firestorm Armada or something like that. Even X-Wing, I guess. There's nothing from Warlord, and there's nothing from Mantic at the minute anyway. Scott said, who's seen the latest Walking Dead episode? I've not seen any Walking Dead in forever, mate. Battlefleet Gothic, yeah, could be close. Lobian says, Life Forest Grave Set Edition came out late August, but I've heard little about that. And look at Gaslands. I think Gaslands was a little bit different because it was just something that was very different. Like, people liked the idea of getting sort of Matchbox or Hot Wheels cars out and doing something a bit different with them. I think that one kind of hit a bit of noise, but there are so many other miniature agnostic rule sets come out. I've been sent one to review called Brutality, and to be honest, I've not managed to review it yet purely because it's not something I necessarily would have picked up myself. I'm not hugely motivated to get it to the table because it's not something I would have picked up myself, and I'm struggling with it. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm struggling to get the review done, because what I don't want to do is give the game, the book or the rule set, a bad review just because it's not my kind of thing. So yeah, I need to kind of be aware of that, really. Ian says, so do you think a minis agnostic game would be well served to have minis lines but not force their use like Kings of War? I think the problem is, mate, is that like any rule set is miniature agnostic if you want it to be. So you can play 40k with whatever minis you want. You can play X-Wing with whatever minis you want if you really want to. You can play Warcry with whatever minis you want. Like, nobody is going to come around and go, you're not using the right models, you can't use it. So every rule set is miniature agnostic. The difference is that the rule sets that don't have a miniatures line attached to them just don't get the press. They don't get the noise. People who buy lots of 40k minis, for example, generally want to play 40k with them, and they're not interested in playing like Star Breach or something like that. Star Wars Armada, quite possibly, yeah. Solo Wargaming Show says all historical rules are miniature agnostic and they go way further back than GW. Yeah, they do. Yeah, I'm not kind of sort of suggesting otherwise. The difference is that years ago you could buy toy soldiers and then people wrote rules to use them. These days, it's a big industry now. It's big business. Like Games Workshop are a big business, but they will tell you that they're a miniatures company, they're a model company, and they make rules just to sell their miniatures. Basically, any company that doesn't sell miniatures, we're basically, so people keep coming back. Like, if you're selling a rule book, I'll buy that from you once. But if you're selling a rule book and miniatures, I'll probably keep coming back and buying miniatures for the game. If I like it, and you've got a good range of miniatures, and that's where the continuing money coming in to keep the company alive goes. Mark says, I put photos of these Martian gene stealers on the post on Deviant Art. Just look for Super Pumpkin Man. Will do, mate. Skirmish War Games says, I've played Brutality. You can use any minis from any time frame or genre. It's good investment to fun ratio. I think the problem with it is, mate, is like I say, I don't think there's anything probably technically wrong with the game. It just doesn't fit my gaming style, and that's why I'm struggling. And I'm trying to understand whether I'm not enjoying the game, or whether it's just not the kind of game that I enjoy. Like, is it a poor game, or is it I'm not enjoying it? And that's, for me, that's where I'm trying to separate it. Tybreeze says, I think COVID has killed Frostgrave 2nd Edition Hype Train. It's always been about word of mouth and events, and now it's only really folk upgrading to a new rule book. There's my point, mate. You buy it once and it's kind of done, really. Paul says, by the same rationale, every rule set has a miniatures range if you want them to. You could play Saga Age of Magic using only AOS miniatures if you want. Yeah, they do, but I think the difference is a game that specifically has a miniatures range, like 40k, for example, because it's the big one. If I go to play a game of 40k and you put down a Necron Warrior, I know what a Necron warrior is, and I might have an idea about what it does and what its rules are and whatever it is, and that to me makes it a very easy thing to understand. There's some commonality. We're playing a game where I might not know you, but we both know the rules. I know what your models do. You know what my models do. As soon as you then factor in a game that has no set models, there's a constant description of, well, what's that again? What does that do? So I know he's carrying a hammer, but what weapon does he have, and all this kind of stuff. And it's fine if if your mates and stuff, and you like that kind of easygoing, just narrative type of game and stuff. It's just an extra layer of complication that I kind of I personally don't enjoy. It's just I like my games to be pretty straightforward and easy to understand. And if I have to keep asking, what's that model? What does he do? Like, that's just something that complicates things. James is saying, I'm with Andy on this. I love the hobby because I can obsess over a project. Picking models, building, painting, and steeping myself in the lore and the setting is all part of it for me. Yeah, that's with me too, mate. I find like I can get attached to painting certain models because like they're building up a story in my head and stuff. Like there's a world where this model exists and I can read about it and I can see the pictures of it and all that kind of stuff. As soon as it's somebody else has created this little world and then said, well, just use what you want, it starts to get a little bit kind of a bit abstract. I liken it, and this is not the same by any stretch, but the closest thing I would liken it to is if I go to watch a game of football and one team's got red shirts on and one team's got blue shirts on, it's really easy for me to tell who's on each team. If everybody just turns up and wears their own stuff, that gets complicated, like in my head, visually trying to watch it. And that's how I see, in a way, that's how I see miniature agnostic games. I don't instantly recognize what's on the table versus what your army is. The chances are, if people are just using whatever they want, it thematically might not kind of fit with the army that they've built or whatever it is. I mean, I'm probably just using that wrong as an example, but it's just another layer of just complexity that I don't need in my games, I think. Paul saying, Tybreeze is saying, for me, a game is about aesthetic of the models and the table. The rules don't mean much to me. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much the same, mate. Paul saying, that's also true. However, a game by the same logic, if I played 40k with whatever minis I like, you as an opponent would no longer know where any of my units were by sight alone. I agree, mate. And that's why I think most people don't play 40k with other minis. They might kit bash something slightly different, or they might put something in as a proxy to try it out. But people generally don't. If there is a model range to go with a game, people tend to buy the models to go with the game, or it's very obvious what they are. For example, like Kings of War, for example, there are certain armies where there aren't models available for them because they're a hangover from being able to bring in your old Warhammer Fantasy armies. But it needs to be pretty obvious. Like, you're not going to bring a load of, like, let's just say, you're not going to put a load of zombies down carrying axes and go, oh, well, actually, these are my, I don't know, these are my dwarves, for example. There needs to be at least be some kind of commonality between it. James is saying, I've considered making a 40k chess set as a project. Need to buy the 103rd edition chess rulebook, though. Though means it would get muddy and deep into questioning things and what the models are for what they represent. Unless you know it'll be questioned. Elves for a dwarf army. Yeah, and that's kind of how I see these miniature agnostic games. For me, like, what I love about tabletop gaming is about the look and the feel and the aesthetic of everything and the emotion that you get back from it, the enjoyment from painting it, the feeling you get of seeing that nice big army all painted up on the table, the playing out those stories on the tabletop, and part of that for me is seeing the world that these games and these developers have created and the model ranges that they've created to kind of represent what they were trying to get across. And I'm sure there are some fantastic miniature agnostic games out there, like rule sets, but then something's lost for me, because as soon as you, like we were saying before about brutality being like being open-ended, you can have it in any time period you want, instantly, like, it's opened it so wide that actually the background story is irrelevant now for me. Paul saying, in the spirit of tonight's subject, should try a miniature agnostic game in a controlled environment with someone helping them through it. I've tried it, mate. This is what I said earlier on. I have tried it. This is me giving my honest opinions about it. I've tried it for a bit, been trying to review stuff and things. What I end up having to do is I have to make cards for everything to try and kind of to track stuff. It's not like if I'm playing a game of Star Wars Legion, I know that's a stormtrooper. I know that's Darth Vader. Like, I know that's rebel units. I know that's Luke Skywalker. Like, it's easy for me to see. It's the same with 40k. I struggle a little bit with Infinity, if I'm perfectly honest, because I don't instantly see what that model is versus its normally very complicated name to pronounce. And it takes me quite a time, like in Infinity as well, to be able to understand what they are, because they're just not obvious. Like, if I come across to something like Malifaux or Wild West Exodus or Vanguard or something, I kind of know what they are. Like, they come with cards that have the characters' faces on them. Like, I know what that model is because I can say, right, well, that's the stats that go with that model. As soon as you complicate that by putting in minis that I recognise from something else, it just complicates it for me, mate. And I don't know why, but that's the way my brain kind of works through it, really. Paulton, you probably need someone to go through it with you. Just as an example, you could play a saga using your Kings of War dwarves, and you would know what units were what. I don't think I wouldn't get any benefit from somebody taking me through it, mate. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, for example, I couldn't use my dwarves because they're all on they're all big bases. I honestly just don't get. I'm not emotionally attached to the rule set. The rule set doesn't interest me really. Like, it's more about the universe that go around the models and around the story. Tiberi says, what would end up happening is you find a specific range to go with an agnostic rule book exclusively, then it defeats the purpose. I think that's kind of my point, really. If I find some really nice models that I like, then I want to try the game that they're from. That's kind of how it works for me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's kind of how it is for me. That's how it works. Anyway, folks, we've hit 11 o'clock there, so I'm going to wrap that up now. Thank you, everybody, for coming in tonight. If you haven't seen the Armada video, please do check it out. It's the only one available online at the moment. There are no other gameplays, so if you're interested in it, please do check it out. If you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Like I said before, I'm like 250 subscribers away now from 9,000, which will be awesome to get there by the end of this month. That would be brilliant. And otherwise, I will see you Wednesday on the Hobby Hangout because I'm back this week. So yeah, I will see you next week. Take care. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.